Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So we are back in the main offices now and back to, well, whatever seeming type of schedule I seem to have. So I've been doing some more opinion type videos lately, and there's a lot of neat stuff in the news, but I think I'm going to hold that off for another day or two. I wanted to get back to some distro reviews, although in looking at the various distro reviews, I looked at a few different ones, and what I finally settled on is not actually Linux. But it is an alternative to Windows that is frequently talked about, and some people have even recommended that I have a look at it, so I decided I'd go ahead. So we are going to have a look at React OS. So React is a complete ground-up rebuild. It's not specifically based on anything. I believe it's written in C and C++, and it utilizes some components of Wine. And what my initial concern is maybe it really is kind of like Linux, just like, Android is Linux, with a bunch of stuff built in and locked into like a Windows-like platform. That was kind of my concern, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't know. So I'm going to, first I'm going to show you some of the articles around this. Now, as you start looking into things, I found this particular article, which is like very clickbaity. You can see here it's React OS, the perfect Windows alternate review and installation. And, they go through this whole philosophy, and then, hey, we have the perfect Windows alternative. And, I decided I wanted to put it to the test, so I went ahead and installed it, and then I grabbed my box of Windows software here out of my closet, and I decided I'd see what would work and what wouldn't work. First software package I predicted would not work. It didn't. Second software package I predicted would work. It did. The one that I wanted to test crashed the whole system. So we're actually going to reinstall React OS here, as just so you can see how to install it. And we're going to go ahead and reinstall it because the program that I was testing, I had high hopes it was actually going to work, and lo and behold, it did not. So of course I went over to Super User, and here's this person asks, is React OS or Wine the more stable replacement for Windows XP? Of course, they're considering XP. Now, mind you, this question was asked over 2 years ago. This is a dated question, but I found that the solution was still very viable. So we're talking about Windows XP out of support. What are you going to do? And this is kind of the question. As I've said before, it's, in my opinion, it's a downside when a lot of people are coming up with a Linux distro, throwing Wine in it out of the box and saying this can run your Windows programs, because it really, in most cases, can't, particularly the more modern. Now, if you have a box of software like this, like this here, I have not installed this on a computer in a long time. This is Print Shop. I used to use this to write my business cards and things like that. I use Photoshop now on the Windows 7 computer. But, I'm sure that this thing here would run on any version of Wine, because it's an older program. And I have here a Office Standard 2007 would probably work. I don't know if that would work or not. Here's a copy of Office XP. I'm pretty sure that would work on any Wine. I think Civilization works just fine. Adobe Creative Suite 4. Well, that's kind of funny because the individual programs allegedly run pretty well, but the installer doesn't. There's ways to get it over there. Of course, I have my Warcraft here. This works just fine on versions of Wine. And then the one software package I have back here is my QuickBooks 2011, I believe. And that run, that will not install under Wine. So looking across all this software, I use LibreOffice, and I actually prefer it over Office 2007. So that's really a non-issue. If I get the urge to play Civilization, I hope it works. I think I've actually installed it somewhere once, just as a test. Obviously, Office XP I wouldn't want to use. Print Shop, no real desire to use that. The only software packages that I would really like to keep using would be these two. QuickBooks, which is where I do my business books. And actually any future businesses I start and run, I'm going to just start getting into GNU Cache for Linux. And then, of course, it would actually be very nice to be able to run Photoshop. You know, I realize GIMP's out there, but if you've used Photoshop and you've used GIMP, you know that Photoshop is indeed the superior program. And the thing is, though, is that a lot of the modern programs will not run under Wine. And we need to keep that in mind. I mean, hopefully they get better. It'd be totally awesome if they could get all of that compatibility back and forth. That would totally rock. I'm not completely sure I see it happening. It'd be cool if it did, but we don't want to come down and say that you know, we don't want to take a Linux distro and throw Wine on it out of the box and say this can run your Windows programs too, because that's kind of a lie. And I wonder if people have actually tested that. And of course, another reason I'm critical of that is you should never install Wine on your Linux computer unless you have a very specific need to use it. Because what does Wine do? It allows you to run exe files and DLL files on your Linux box, and that is the most targeted platform for malware. So keep that in mind if you're, you know, when you're looking for a Linux distro. If it has Wine out of the box, you probably don't want it. But we have React OS, which is not just Wine. This is a completely different platform. So this person asks this question on SuperUser about this, and we get this answer. And this is usually you see forum answers are some yes and no. This guy here had his absolutely well-reasoned answer, which was very good. He says, no, it is not a viable replacement for Windows XP. It may never be, but certainly isn't now. And of course, this was written, like I said, about 3 years ago. You know, come next month, it'll be 3 years ago. But I'm really not seeing a lot that has changed. So really what they're trying to do here is emulate like an NT type platform. And they say here it'll crash more than Windows 95 or 3.1. I'm almost might be inclined to agree based upon my experience. Now, I've installed React OS on virtual boxes a couple of times, and a couple of times, you know, every single time, within just playing with it a little bit, it was rendered completely useless, requiring reinstalls and things like that. All right. So let's see. They're just really talking about a lot of the differences here. You can read through this article. I just did you can see what the title is here. Is React OS or Wine the more stable replacement? Very well reasoned argument, and the final conclusion is no, it's not. It's not going to replace XP, nor do we need to. You know, if you watch the video I did a couple days ago from the road, the one where I had the shack in the background there, you know, I talk about the fact that we don't need to be grasping so hard at an old style. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and boot this guy up. Now, here's a downside. Let me get into the React OS homepage there real quick before we go too much further. All right, so here is your React OS homepage. So it is very lightweight. I think even the installation media is, I think, only like 125 megabytes. Very light platform. The challenge that you get that wasn't made very clear on things, at least not here, and I'm sure it is made more clear in the wiki guides, but I can't even find them. I looked through all these menus. I might have just very well missed. Okay, there's installing, so maybe that was Is that the one it was looking for? No, even this just gives you this information here. It doesn't really tell you anything. There are wiki pages. You can find these faster. I guess there's a wiki link up here. This will give you the information. Okay, that's what I couldn't see before because it wasn't in my main menu. I was not seeing the wiki up here, which is where it gives you your installations information. But here you have two downloads. You can do the boot CD if you want to install it. You can do the live CD if you just want to play with it a little bit. Now, when you first boot up the live CD, it asks you if you'd like to use it live or if you'd like to install it. And if you hit the install on that, the system will crash on you. It tell you that user and initi will not load or failed to load. What it turns out is that that's in there, and that's a feature that they want to have one unified download, but they're not there yet. And somebody had said, hey, why don't you just like take that button out or gray it out or something, like, we don't want to, it's all in the wiki. Well, I couldn't find the wiki to install the thing very easily. Although I see it now, it's up at the top. But at the same time, if you just want to play with it a little bit, you want the live CD. If you actually want to install it, like on a VirtualBox, you want the boot CD. So you had to download both. The good news is downloading both of these is still less download time than any average Linux distro. So keep that in mind. We are going to reinstall it. So I have placed the ReactOS disk back in my drive. We are going to, and I'm going to have to hit any key here when this boots because my main ReactOS has totally crashed and burned. So we're going to have to reinstall it, and hopefully it works here. Okay, so here we're going to set everything up. So United States English, push enter, just walking us through some basic things. Sure. We're actually going to install it down here under the FAT32. Format the partition quickly. Press enter to continue. Press enter. You'll see it's copying files pretty quickly. And then we want to install the bootloader. Of course, this is all done in VirtualBox. There we are. So we are not going to push the key this time. One of the things that they seem to keep within the Windows platform is some of the sheer annoyances of the drivers. When I had first booted it on, it wants to install 3 drivers. It fails on all of them. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but here we are. So now that we've installed it, just like Windows, now we have to install it. Okay, so that first one just kind of installed the shell, and now we have to walk through all this. We want to acknowledge these excellent foundations, included wine, free type, etc. You can read through that list. Okay, let's see. We already chose our keyboard layout and localities from the initial setup. I'm just going to go ahead and name it. We're going to skip the password. We're just going to go ahead and keep everything where it is. You can manually configure network components, or you can keep your network components. No, this will not be part of a work group. And now it's going ahead to complete things. If there's a CD drive, remove it. Restart your computer, click finish. All right, so this time I did not remove that, so I'm just not going to press any key at this screen. It's going to bypass this and boot from the hard disk. Go ahead and boot up ReactOS. Come on, there you go. All right, so what you're seeing here on ReactOS is, okay, so here it found new hardware, an Ethernet controller, install driver automatically, installation fails. Hey, new system device, installation failed. Hey, new multimedia audio device, installation failed. I'm not sure if that means we're going to be able to view anything or not. I'm going to right click the desktop here. You can see everything here looks just like, Windows 98 really. So it is certainly faithful to being a clone of that. Let's go ahead and apply the new picture there so we get a very nice picture. That's the only picture we have in there. We're going to come over here, and I know that gets me too big of a screen size. Let me see. Let me see if this will work. And now I still have to... Just trying to get it so I don't have scroll bars on the screen, but I want to make it as large as I possibly can. All right, we're going to minimize that, minimize that. All right, so now we have everything pretty much looking exactly like you'd expect from Windows. So here's a React OS theme, apparently, or a classic Windows theme. So pretty much everything in here is almost exactly like what you'd find in the Windows. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, all of these colorations are the same exact things that you will find in a Windows, in an old Windows platform. In fact, I know for a fact all these are going to be found inside Windows 95, Windows 98 era. So there we can get everything customized. Let's see. So let's see if there's any programs here installed. Just seeing if there's like an Internet Explorer or anything here. Does not appear to be. You can see all the programs here are very much like Windows. As I'd said, I think that they're getting a lot of their compatibility for programs from Wine. And with that being said, if something will work on Linux on Wine, it seems like it would work here. If something would not work on Linux on Wine, it seems like it would not work here. That's actually what I had found. I actually have the inside the disk here. I actually have the let me go back to the main hard drive here. Drive's booting up. That's this one here. So here's my QuickBooks install. When I clicked on this, it went through, and I cannot remember if it went through as far as it does on my other computers running Wine. But what happened when I ran this install is it got to a certain point, it starts installing the DLLs, and then the entire system became completely inoperable, and that's actually why we had to reinstall this. I'm going to take this disk out, though, and I'm going to let's see if I have something else here. Going to try the Civilization disk. I know Warcraft will work, but that's on the bottom of my box again. So I'm going to try my copy of Civilization here, see if that'll run. I said anything that I had successfully run, anything I successfully run on Wine, on a Linux computer, I was able to run here on React OS. I might need to go put that drive back in. Okay. I bet there's no DVD support. I think that's the problem because this is a DVD CD. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I bet there's no DVD support on here. So if you happen to have a disc that is on a DVD, I'm guessing it will probably not work. All right, they're going to make me. I'm going to go ahead and dig back to the bottom of the box, grab my copy of Warcraft, see if that works. All right, I guess that wasn't too much of digging. All right, so there we are. So it looks like that's the problem. The thing does not have any. It can't read DVDs. This is the thing. It works pretty much anywhere. So you can see that that's working. So I have not fully attempted to install Warcraft. Just went ahead and plopped it in there. See if it looked the same. I was not able to test out if any audio or anything works, although being as that it did say early on that an audio driver was not working, then it wouldn't. I'm guessing it may not work for me. And then, of course, one other potential challenge I have is I don't seem to have a web browser on here, so... anyone have one of those old AOL discs or something laying around that I might borrow to, try and put a web browser on here? I thought I would have one. Yeah, I'm not seeing one. So, overall, I just wanted to get in and show React OS. I think it's an interesting concept, but also in light of the video that I did just a couple of days ago, where I looked at, I started out kind of making fun, like, hey, we're gonna do a review of Windows 98. Kind of in the same light, this is like going backwards to me. And I think, though, keeping in mind when this project started, this started in like 1996, kind of between that Windows 95, Windows 98, and the idea of React OS was to produce an open source version of Windows, essentially. That's really what their goal was. And I think that they have succeeded at their goal of creating Windows 95 or Windows 98. But it's 2017, and as Windows keeps on moving and progressing on and on, as that happens, what seems to be happening here with React OS is that they're not going any further. They're kind of stuck way back in the past on way old software, on way old appearances, and it just kind of gives you a view that's it just doesn't look like a system that's very useful at this point in time. So it is an interesting concept. I agree with people. It's a very good academic concept. It's neat, the direction that they're trying to run in and what they're trying to accomplish. I just don't think that it's really that good of a platform. I mean, this article here, the perfect Windows alternate, I don't really think this is a Windows alternate at all, really. I do agree with this guy's comment better. It is neat as an academic thing. It's going to be interesting to watch how it progresses. But it does seem very unstable. Like I said, I have not had an installation of this that has lived very long. It's definitely old, definitely out of date. And just like Wine on Linux, it will run a lot of your older Windows programs. It may run a lot of your Windows games. But you're not going to run a lot of really good software on React OS. So with all that being said, is this total crap? No, it's actually a very neat concept. I like what they're trying to do, and if they were able to keep this as modern as Windows has been as it has progressed, in both themes, maybe some more compatibility, maybe give me a web browser, I could actually get in here and play with it a little bit if we were able to do that. But with all that being said, this is not a Linux distro. This isn't like a Wine locked into some distro, and that's what makes this interesting. That it's not just a respin of the Cinnamon desktop or a respin of GNOME or anything else. It legitimately does have that appearance of Windows 95. In fact, if I went and I installed Windows 95 on this computer, this is pretty much exactly what it would look like. And that might be part of the negative, because while I'm not a huge fan of the super flat modern UI, I really wasn't a fan of what this looked like either. I think that computers really hit their peak in appearance around the Windows Vista, Windows 7 era. Very nice skeuomorphic designs, gradients. It gave you something that was really nice to look at, and that's why I love this KDE computer over here that you can't see behind my box anymore. But I love this because it's got that character to it that's really good. In my Cinnamon computer here, this has a neat character to it. It's not modern, flat, monotonous color, but it's not old, and that's kind of what I'm not a huge fan of in distros like or in desktop environments like Mate. Oftentimes has an older feel to me. XFCE and LD, I don't know. It's way too late for my brain to work right now. But Ubuntu, which one's that? LXDE, I guess. I don't generally like all those because they do have kind of an older appearance. Not too old. They don't look like this, but they're definitely older. And that's what I like about Cinnamon, is it gives me that balance of keeping the ability to have the setup that I want with the slick designs. We don't have this solid bar up here anymore. We have, nice looking rounded corners and stuff like that. So with all that being said, this is React OS. It is an interesting academic project. If you do have some old games, old software you want to be able to run, this might be a good way to do it. It might be neat to run this right next to like a Windows 95 or Windows 98, see which one works better for running old software. That'd be neat to figure out. But as far as regular use, as far as doing anything real, this one's just not ready quite yet. It is alpha. This is not something in full-time release, but it is an alpha build. But it's 11 years old. It's not like an alpha build and they started putting it together a year or two ago. This is 11 years old. If you think about it, this came out when Windows 95 was the main system. They had Windows 95, Windows 98, Lord help us, Windows ME. Or they had the 2000. They had a long reign of XP. They had the short, we wish we forgot about it, Vista. We had the 7. We had the 8. We had the 8.1. We had the 10. All that happened in the Windows world, and we're still on an alpha. Probably because there's not a lot of system resources behind a project like this, and that's probably why it's not moving ahead quite as quick. So it's not like absolute horrible garbage. Absolutely not. This is a neat concept. I'm just not sure it's a concept that's really worth a whole lot. I agree with other people in other articles that it's probably better if you just run a good modern Linux computer and throw play on Linux on it. I think you'll actually run Windows programs just as good, and I think you'll have a more secure interface and a more modern interface. So we'll go ahead and shut this guy down. You'll see that even that's like Windows 95, which is kind of cool. So with all that being said, this has been Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.